So like Summer said, I'm an educator, and I actually get asked often, how do you build relationships with students? And every time I get asked this question, I think about the first time I was asked this question. I was in my 4th grade class teaching a lesson, and in walked a group of college students. And they're looking at my walls and walking around. And I got my students engaged in an activity, and one of the college students comes up to me and says, "So I hear that you're really good at building relationships with students. What's your secret?" And you know, in the moment, I wasn't used to getting asked this question, and I got kind of like, I don't know, I was like, be awesome and love kids. And obviously this is not what she was looking for, because in that moment, her face was like completely blank and dissatisfied. Like, I just asked you a really important question and you gave me like, be awesome. So she left, and I started thinking about, you know, how do I build relationships with students? I had the opportunity to affect someone's practice, and I told them to be awesome. The next time, obviously, I'm going to get this question again, and the next time I get it, I want to have a really good answer. So I went home, and I'm thinking about, how am I the way that I am with kids? And I started thinking about, who were the most important people in my life? Who were my mentors? And I thought of really 3 people in my life that have affected who I am, and I wouldn't be who I am without them. So I thought of me when I was 9 years old. This is really when I remember the influence of the adults in my life. So in order for you to understand the stories I'm about to tell you, I have to tell you a little bit about myself when I was 9. So I was a really whimsical child. I liked to skip. I looked out the window. I couldn't sit still. I was that kid. But I was really creative, and my parents noticed that in me and put me in dance lessons. So when I was 4, I was put into dance, but I didn't meet Mr. Tony until I was 9. So Mr. Tony was my dance teacher, and he was a very loud Italian man, and he was really intimidating. But also, like, we knew he cared about us, but he was just like, you wanted to show him the best always. And my turning point with Mr. Tony was during a summer workshop. So I'm in this workshop, I'm in the back. I never want to be in the front. I didn't really want to be noticed. I didn't want to be at the top. I didn't want to be at the bottom. I just wanted to blend in because I loved dancing, but I just didn't really like the attention. So I'm in the back of the class, I'm doing the combination, and all of a sudden the music stops. And he starts pointing at people, and he's like, sit down, sit down, sit down. I'm like, oh, he's going to tell me to sit down. Okay, okay. And he didn't tell me to sit down. I was the last one standing, and my heart is like pounding. I'm like, what did I do wrong? What's going on? What is he going to point out to me? And he says, I want you to do the combination in front of everyone. So everyone's eyes are on me, and I'm nervous, and my hands are sweating, and my heart is beating, and I'm like, oh gosh. And I start dancing, the music comes on, and it's like everyone just melts away. So I'm dancing, I'm dancing, I'm dancing, the music turns off, and I open my eyes, and like everyone's still there, and he goes, that's how it's done. Don't ever hide in the back. He goes, I notice that you hide in the back often. He goes, don't hide in the back, you have a gift, and people need to see it. So he says, I believe in you, you can do it. And I thought, in that moment, I'm like, he believes in me, I can do it. So I go home, and my mom said, how was dance today? And I said, Mr. Tony believes in me, I'm going to be a professional dancer. And my parents, they were used to getting a lot of these whimsical ideas from me, because I just, when you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say a dolphin training, painting, dancer. I just wanted to be it all. But the one thing that I really remember about Mr. Tony is he believed in me. He told me, I believe in you, and he pushed me. And I did more than I expected to do because of this influence in my life. So, I go back to, how do you build relationships with kids? Why are you the way you are? And the next person that I was thinking about in my life, so he believed in me, was Miss Smith. So this is not the greatest picture of Miss Smith, but Miss Smith was in my life for a short period of time. She was my 7th grade reading teacher. And she was the kind of adult that would, she'd give us high fives, she'd ask us how we were doing, and how was your weekend? But when she asked you how your weekend was, you could tell she was very genuine about it. Because a lot of people ask, how's your weekend? And then they walk away. It's protocol. But she would ask us and she'd really listen. So Miss Smith was my reading teacher, and she had different books every few weeks that we would have our reading groups. So she set out 5 books and she said, I want you to choose your reading group. So in middle school, what's it all about? Social groups, fitting in. And I chose the book that all of my friends were choosing. And instead of saying, that's too hard for you, she pulled me aside after class and she said, I can see that you want to fit in. I can see that you want to be with your friends. This is going to be a challenge for you, but if you're up for the challenge, I can help you with it. I can help you before school. I can help you after school. And I said, challenge accepted. So for the next few weeks, we had a book club of 2, and she helped me. We read the book, and she would explain different things to me, different vocabulary words. But the one thing that I really remember about Miss Smith is that, she supported me. She didn't detour me from this challenge that I had. She supported me in a way that was like, you can do it, and I'm here for you. So, here I go. I'm thinking again, how do I build relationships with students? I have Mr. Tony who believed in me, and I have Miss Smith that supported me. And the last person I thought of was in my life in high school. And actually, he was in my life for a little bit longer than this. He was a very good family friend, and it was my youth pastor at my church. His name was Pastor Bolt. So Pastor Bolt was in my life. High school is also social pressures and fitting in and all of these different things that are going on in your life. And he was always there. He was really funny and always there to lend an ear when you needed it. And I remember one time I was in high school and I went to a party and one of my friends was doing heavy drugs. And I felt very uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to process this. And it's going in my mind. I'm like, should I stop being friends with them? I mean, of course not. When your friends are doing things that are potentially harming them, it's a cry for help. They need you. And of course, I couldn't go to my parents because they would say, stop being friends with this person. What are you thinking? So I was at a youth gathering, and we were all together, and I turned to Pastor Bolt. I waited for everyone to go away, and I waited for a moment when it was just us, and I turned to him, and it just all came out. And it's like, blah, 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 I have this problem. And he looked at me and he said, wow, I can tell that you have really been holding on to this, and I'm so thankful that you're comfortable enough to talk to me about it. And I really don't remember the rest of the conversation, but I do remember how I felt in that moment. And he listened to me without judgment. I didn't feel judged. He listened. He never, I don't think he ever really told me what to do. He just kind of listened to me, and that's what I needed in that moment. So again, I'm thinking, Mr. Tony believed in me, and Miss Smith supported me, and Pastor Bolt listened to me without judgment. So these are the models that I've had in my life, this far. And so I'm thinking, what do all of these 3 people in my life have in common? They never treated me like I was a kid. They treated me like I was a human. So I feel like that's really important. So I go back to my original question, how do you build relationships with kids? And I think about that girl again, that completely blank face, and what would I tell her again? And I think of my life as a teacher. So how do I apply what I've had so far to what I'm doing in education? So I have a particular student in mind when I was doing my thought process. And he was known as a difficult student. So year after year, he was like, oh, that kid's in my class, okay, you know, and so I get my class list, and he's on my list, and I'm thinking, okay, so what can I do before the year begins that I can really support him, because I can do it, you know. He's known as a difficult kid, but I can crack that nut, I can do it. And, you know, go in with a positive attitude. So we go for our home visit, and I'm looking around, you know, and he's taken care of, and he eats food, he bathes, and like he's on the outside, he looks very put together. But I can tell right away why he is the way that he is with his interaction with his parents and his siblings. And I'm like, okay, this explains a lot. He doesn't have anyone in his corner. They're taking care of him, but they're not taking care of him the way that they need to. They're not attuned to him. So knowing this going into the school year, I have a lot of things in place that I'm going to do with him. Fast forward to 6 months later, and I'm going around, I'm spinning my wheels. I can't do it, and I'm frustrated. I cannot get through to this child. What am I doing wrong? You know, he would sit in his chair and he'd look at the ceiling. He wouldn't do any work. He would tell me no. He would go home, he wouldn't do his homework. His family was not involved. It was very, very hard. And so, you know, worst comes to worst, we all sit down and we're like, maybe this isn't a good fit for him. Maybe this isn't where he needs to be. And I go home, and it's weighing very heavy on my heart, and I'm like, this is actually where he needs to be. Because I don't think he's gonna have another teacher who thinks about him, you know, thinks about ways to get through to him. So in my life comes Tina Payne Bryson. You know, it's like, ah. So I go to a professional development, and she has The Whole Brain Child, No Drama Discipline with Dan Siegel. And in these books, they come up with practical strategies of how to work with students who are in those freak out moments or who are particularly difficult. And she had this strategy where when you're speaking to a child, you get below their eye level. I've always heard to get at their eye level, but I've never heard below. And she said it's a way to kind of disarm yourself and be more vulnerable so that they can open up to you. And I thought, you know what? I have tried absolutely everything else. Why not? Why not? I mean, I'm going to try it. So Monday morning comes around. So on Thursday, we had the talk with his parents. Friday, I saw Tina Payne Bryson. And then on Monday, I was like, all right, you know what? Here we go. I'm going to do it. So I got the kids engaged in an activity, and no one else was around. But it was just this boy and myself. And I had him sit in my chair, and I sat on the floor. And I looked at him and I said, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated. I had a talk with your parents on Thursday, and do you know what this talk is about? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, we're talking about you leaving our school, and I don't want you to leave. I said, but what's working now? I said, I feel like you think no one's in your corner, but I'm in your corner. I'm here for you. I don't know how to help you. And in that moment, it's just kind of like I disarmed. I said, help me help you. You know, I don't know what to do. Help me. And he looked at me, and he had tears streaming down his face. And I had tears streaming, down my face. And we had a breakthrough. It's like I took a sledgehammer and I broke down the wall, and it came down. And for the next 10 minutes, he told me everything he needed, and I wrote it down. And I said, okay, so I have these things. This is what I need from you. And we ripped off a piece of paper, and he wrote down everything. The next day, it was like a totally different child. His parents were coming to everything that I invited them to. He was like a totally new child. But here, the thing is, it was halfway through the year, and I'm like, you know, I made this giant stride with this child. I can't just leave him here. So I went to the teacher of the next grade level. I picked his teacher, and I said, let's start building that relationship now. let's not wait until 6 months down the line when you have to break down this wall that I broke down. I'm going to tell you what he's told me, and we're going to try to build that relationship now. So every day we went and we waved to the new teacher, and she made connections with him, and she'd show him different science things, and he was getting really excited. So I checked in with him the next year, and he was doing beautifully. So, you know, it takes one person. I truly believe it takes one person, and I could be that one person for him. So, you know, going back to that original question, if she were to ask me again, how do you build relationships with students? I would look her in the face and say, be awesome. I love kids. Thank you.